Hello and welcome. It is episode number 45 of the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the differences between introverts and extroverts and a new category that's somewhere in the middle. My name is Frances Echeverria, licensed marriage and family therapist.
I am Deanna Silverman, licensed clinical social worker. Hi, guys.
Deanna, where can they find us online if they're just like stumbled across us by some amazing work of fate?
Oh, you can find us at Humanitarians Podcast on Instagram. To start, you can find me at Hilarious Humanitarian on Instagram, Humanitarian Mom. You can find our podcast pretty much anywhere that podcasts are aired, especially iTunes, which we really love reviews and all that good. Hey, actually, sorry to kind of sidetrack, but guess what?
What?
We hit 250,000 downloads.
Okay, like slow round of applause for us because that's pretty impressive considering we still have no idea what we're doing.
Zero clue.
That
no, we
so
know.
Big.
You know what you're doing. You're amazing. Me, on the other hand, I'm not sure. I'm like stumbling around here, but 250,000 down
in less than a year. And what's really cool about that is I really do feel like this is a labor of love and we're helping people out. I love that.
Yeah, it is a labor of love. But I do want to mention that it's really funny because we'll dive into this, but we both are nowhere near being extroverts. Like, if anything, we're like the awkward introvert, ambivert. We're trying to figure out how to pronounce that one. But it's just funny to me because, like, if you sat us down and said, okay, 250,000 clicks, you and I probably would like go into a little ball in the fetal position on the ground and start sweating, or at least me.
That's about accurate. That's about accurate.
Anyhow, so where can we find you, Frances, on social media and the internet?
Mostly using the handle Shut Up Skippy. You'll find that on Instagram, also on Snapchat and the website, which I've had a couple of mail submissions for guest blogs. Love hearing from people on that. You can check that out to find out more about it. So yeah, we are all over the interweb. Can I take a side moment to explain what happened and why this podcast didn't almost happen today before we jump into what we're going to do? Because I feel like,
of course.
sometimes like life just throws stuff at you and you can be mad about it, or you can go, you've got to be kidding. Like, what's next? So let me take you through the day today. Starts with a near migraine that I'm chasing off all day long because I gave up energy drinks and soda and I don't want to go back to that, and caffeine will usually fix it pretty quick. But no. I chased it off, didn't want to take a pill. Okay, fine. Pick up the kids and my son, school is back, and amen. Thank you, teachers, for taking my children away from me. But my son is a bear after school. So he comes home and he starts just getting attitude. And I'm going like, what is going on? So he's getting in trouble already. Like, so I just get off work and now I'm having to like reprimand him. And all of a sudden we're in the middle of having like a little conversation. And he goes, Angelina's crying. And I'm like, my ears perk up. We come running into the kitchen and my daughter, who's 10, is holding her eye and there's blood everywhere. And I'm going,
no.
And then so then my son starts freaking out. I'm like, just be quiet. Don't work your sister up. And she's afraid to look. And then she sees blood on her hand. Anyway, the big cat is not very happy that we have the kitten. And Angelina went to get the big cat out from under the couch. And the cat got her and nicked her right in the corner of the eyeball. Like on her little, it gets worse. On her little eyelid, right? So at least I'm going, okay, her eyeball's not broken, but I'm having to wipe blood off everywhere, tell Trip to be quiet. Okay, get it under control. We're fine. Okay, so then Trip wants to make a snack. So he's made popcorn probably 100 times in his little life. Okay, well, he decided he needed to use the bathroom while he made the popcorn, put the popcorn in too long, and then the house is billowing with smoke. The alarm's going off. The alarm company is calling me, telling me that the fire department's on the way, and I'm just like, no! Stop. It doesn't stop there. I get the smoke out of the house, the fire alarm off, and then Angelina comes crying again because guess what happened this time? The kitten got her on the other side of the eye because my kids don't know to keep damn cats away from their face. And here we are.
My God. And this is what, day 4 of school being back in? You thought you would have relief. Sorry.
Yeah, I did. So anyway, here we are. And there's a podcast. Only 5 minutes late for recording, I might add. This is why people drink. I didn't drink, but this is why people drink.
Oh, God.
So should we talk about introversion and extroversion?
Oh, sure. Why not? Also, I think we're going to, because I took a test. I felt like I knew what the answer would be for me because I had not heard of, God, I cannot say it, ambivert.
And we're just going to, look, somebody now.
We're going to call it ambi, okay?
If you're an ambi, we'll just give it a little name, but ambivert, ambivert, whatever.
Yeah. A Bieber? I don't know. So it's ambi. All right. My entire life have felt like an introvert, but people think I'm an extrovert because I push through certain discomforts or what have you. I speak up for the benefit of people who are introverts so that they know they are amongst somebody who, although may be outspoken or opinionated, I'm on their level.
Okay, and you get them.
I get them, and like I'm just a louder version of them, but not all the time. Like if you put me in a group, I can be one of the most quiet people. And so it's been kind of bizarre my whole life thinking, why everyone thinks I'm an extrovert because I'm like weird and funny and I say weird stuff sometimes, but like I never want to go out. I love being at home by myself or with like one friend. So it was just always weird. And then I heard of this ambi term and I took a test and voila, I am an ambivert. Yes. Oh, I feel like I finally have my place in the world.
We're going to cover an article from Forbes actually that talks about that, about 9 signs that you could be an ambivert. And we'll also talk about what the difference is between an extrovert and an introvert. And lastly, we asked some folks that are listeners to explain to us where they fall on this spectrum and how it works into their lives, because it can impact your career choices, your relationships, and so forth. So we'll cover that. And we have a special guest too, who is going to talk about how to be a leader as an introvert, because I think sometimes people who identify themselves as being pretty introverted think that they're not going to be able to like move up the ranks or do this or that because they tend to be a little more quiet and drained by social interaction. So we're going to cover that and check in on self-care and pushing our comfort zones. We do want to ask you to subscribe and rate our podcast, and a brief disclaimer that this is for informational purposes only, does not constitute medical advice, is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. So should we start with the differences and then we'll explain where people can get the test and how they can do it? I feel like that's a solid start to it.
I think so, because we've all heard of introvert, extrovert. So I think we should like start there.
So what has been, if I were to ask you, Deanna, like what's your, 2-cent definition? How would you explain it to somebody?
An introvert would be somebody who's more quiet, observes a lot, thinks a lot, doesn't say too much, shy, at times can be withdrawn, just prefers being either alone or maybe with 1 or 2 people, not large crowds. I feel like extroverts are like that outgoing, loud person that likes being the center of attention, craves that, wants that, is always in groups, facilitating social events. That's what I think of when I think of those 2 terms.
So basically you nailed it. You said it, like introverts are self-contained, extroverts are gregarious. I love that word, gregarious. My friend Lou, who we featured on the show, the one that lost all that weight, he is definitely gregarious. The way that I've always kind of in my head just categorized people is, after a social interaction, do you feel drained or do you feel energetic? That's like the most basic thing that I've ever broken it down to. And so for me, personally, I experience this on a regular basis because I have to go out and do station events. And when I'm at radio station events, concerts, broadcasts, I love interacting with people. It makes me really anxious and I'm uncomfortable on the inside, but like it feels good, but then it's uncomfortable. But when I'm done there, I am just done. Usually I have to go and take a nap. I jokingly say I'm done peopling.
How do you manage how much to say to fans? Because you're out in public. And I remember when I was living in San Diego, there was this talk show what am I trying to say? Like, it was like a show like yours.
Like a radio show, yeah.
It was a radio show from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and I listened to it every single day. And once again, it's like my ambi style, mainly introvert, where like I saw them in person and I'm just not going to approach them. I don't approach celebrities or people who at least appear like they're a celebrity in my eyes. I don't approach them because I'm very much like, what would I want somebody to do if they saw me? Like, just,
and you're like, leave me alone.
Like, wave from a distance or text message me or DM me that you saw me, you know? No, I don't know. It's just, for me, I get fearful about like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And so I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I couldn't imagine going to these events, being a personality like you, having fans who want to meet you and talk to you, but you're like time limited. There's only so much time in the day.
Right.
And so I don't know how to facilitate those pleasant conversations without overdoing it for myself and even for them. Like, I didn't realize you were going to ask me all that, Deanna. And I'm like, me neither. But it would have felt weird if I just said hi.
I guess the answer to that is it's a case by case thing. And it also depends on like where I'm at mentally, physically too. If I'm tired, physically, like in terms of where I'm at, running into someone at Target, which happens all the time, versus running into someone at the gynecologist, which has happened before, are two very different situations. So.
You're also, what are you doing here? Getting my vag checked, you? Yeah. Like, I don't know. But see, here's, like, I'm so awkward that if I saw somebody at the gynecologist and they were like, hi, I follow you on Instagram, you know, because this has happened to me before. Like, what do? You're sitting in the lobby. It's dead quiet. Now I'm like, you do? Like, I like you. Let's talk. And then it's like, oh, I'm dying inside because I want to be nice, but then I'm too nice and I don't know.
Yeah, I struggle with that. And sometimes I feel I'll walk away from interactions and go, well, you sound stupid. Because I don't know. I don't know.
Literally every single time that's what I do, which is like, I cannot tell you, this is bad for marketing purposes and making money purposes, which is why everything is a labor of love, because we don't get paid for any of this. But like, I have such a hard time managing the business end, or I can't tell you how many times I've turned down opportunities to do like I don't know why anybody would want me to speak at any kind of event, but I've turned down a lot of opportunities because I'm like, I just can't do it. I can't put myself out there. I'm too awkward. I'm too nervous. And I'm going to walk away going, wow, you schmuck. That was really bad. Weird. But I could do it when I think about, sorry, I'm rambling. But when I think about like maybe picking 20 of my closest followers, I absolutely could stand in front of them and do an entire like 3-day workshop. That is something that I would love to do one of these days. But I have to like feel like we're connected somehow.
Right. And that's
become family.
And that's where this comparison, the side-by-side chart that we will have up for people to check out, talks about. It talks about how connections are fewer. Sometimes we don't accept change too easily. We enjoy the company of a few close interactions and not bigger, larger, more superficial type situations.
Right.
And so I guess and we'll talk about our results of the test we took, but a lot of practice. And the one thing that I've learned how to do is just really embrace and even magnify to a comical degree some of my introverted tendencies and awkwardness to make people feel comfortable because they can connect with that. So it's a weird thing. It's definitely learned. I kind of have, I call it like my performance monkey mode, which we've talked about. So what's interesting though, you can kind of see some of these personality traits of people from an early age. For an introvert, this article from keydifferences.com talks about introverts are reserved by nature. They are preoccupied with their own thoughts and feelings, so they need a lot of personal space. And they feel more comfortable and more energized when they're alone. So you might find those like us in their own world of facts, feelings, and fantasies. Sometimes people think they're shy and antisocial, but rather there's more of a social fear. They are really good active listeners, or tend to be, and really good deep friendships.
I can see that for sure.
Now, extroverts are the type that like to be surrounded by and interact with people, and they focus on practical realities rather than inner feelings and opinions. So sometimes being in solitude gets boring. So they can be more enthusiastic into social gatherings and are the same in public as in private. Gregarious is such a great word for an extrovert. What is your husband?
I'm definitely not that.
What's your husband?
My husband, I would say nothing is a simple answer with me. He's probably an ambivert as well, kind of but middle. With more extraversion, with more extroverted traits, and I'm more ambi with more introverted traits. Because my husband loves talking to people, and I can throw him into a room full of strangers and he'll do just fine. He'll walk away with like 10 new best friends, and there's no like kicking and screaming. Like I'd be like, hey, you want to do this? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's go. He's not loud. He's actually very quiet until he like opens up. Mm-hmm. But whereas I'm like, no, I don't even like, sometimes, most of the time, I don't even like ordering food over the phone. Like, I don't even want to talk to somebody. I'm like, no, don't make me do it. Don't.
That is something that text messaging and social media has really fed into, I think, is keeping introverts introverted. If I didn't have to be on the phone all day, every day, talking to listeners calling up, which, by the way, shameless plug, even if you're not in the listening area, you can listen online.
And you should. And follow her Instagram, because you guys do like live Facebook or Instagram feeds, and I love watching them.
Yeah, I have a great partner who's very extroverted in a lot of ways, so it's a fun balance. But if I didn't have to answer phone calls and interact with people on that level on a regular basis, I am absolutely sure I'd be way more introverted. Way more. Yeah. But it's like any other muscle you have to work.
Right.
So we want to go ahead and move into this article about the 9 signs that you're an ambivert. So we've kind of discussed, and you can check out the resources. We'll tell you where to get them, the difference between extroverts and introverts. But there is this new category, because what they're finding is that it's not a box. There's never a box with human behavior. It's more of a spectrum. And ambivert, or ambis as we're calling them, are in the middle. There's distinct advantages to being that. Now, this is interesting.
It kind of reminds me of like a chameleon. Mm-hmm. You know, like they're able to adapt. As I was reading the article, because I tested as an ambivert, I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. That's totally me. You know, you kind of read through it, and it talks about how there's, like, as you said, distinct advantages over, let's say, somebody testing into like being a true introvert or a true extrovert. And they were just saying that, you know, their personality doesn't lean too heavily in either direction, and they have a much easier time adjusting their approach to people based on the situation. So this enables them to connect more easily, more deeply with a wider variety of people. I guess there was a research or a study that found that the ambiverts' greater social flexibility enabled them to outsell like all other groups and it said like they moved 51% of more product per hour than the average salesperson in this study, because they're able to read each person that they're interacting with. Like each person that comes through the door, they can kind of mold and speak to their personality, as opposed to like maybe an extrovert being loud and
too over the top.
In your face, you know, they could scare an introvert or just overwhelm an introvert and be like, hey, I'm out of here. And so somebody actually wrote us, you know, our listeners wrote in to say, I'm an extrovert, I'm an introvert. And somebody said, oh, I'm an extrovert, and extroverts tend to be like, this is why you always see an extrovert in a leadership position, because they're loud and outgoing. But that while that can be true, it's not a hard answer like, oh, okay, only leadership is extrovert. In fact, as your guest talked about, you can be an introvert and be a leader. But also in this study, it says ambiverts have a really great ability to adapt, which can make them good leaders. So there's no simple answer to this.
Right. And now that they put this on the scale, this particular study that was in Forbes from Adam Grant at Wharton said that about 75% of people put themselves somewhere in the middle. And just like any other scale, you might be leaning more towards the extrovert or introvert side. But what's really interesting is it was talking about how social you are is driven by the dopamine, the feel-good hormone in your brain. So we have these different levels of dopamine-fueled stimulation in the part of the brain that's responsible for higher mental functions. And so those who have a higher level of stimulation tend to be introverts, and they try and avoid any extra social stimulation because it can lead to being anxious or overwhelmed. So we've talked about on the podcast before, this could be interesting just as I'm like putting all this together. Depending on your chemistry of your brain, you know, if your dopamine or your neurotransmitters and things are out of whack, which by the way, there are tests for that. And some listeners have hit me up and I've sent them the information, you know, maybe there's opportunities to get yourself somewhere in the middle, which is pretty interesting if you think about it. So this article gave, and I think we should just go down it, since 75% of people identify somewhere on this scale of introverts. So let's go ahead and work down, just briefly read through the list of the 9 traits. Do you see it?
All right, here we go. Yeah. Number 1, I can perform tasks alone or in a group. I don't have much preference either way. For me, that is totally true.
Yeah, I could see that.
What do you think? Yeah.
I don't like trusting people with other jobs. So I tend to be the one that'll do it all, but I can do my piece. I've gotten better with it with age, I think.
I was always the kid in the classroom where there was like an uneven amount of, you know, everyone pair up, and there was always that one person that was by themselves. And so at least my teachers started doing this thing where, like, instead of forcing someone to be by themselves, they would say, does anyone want to volunteer to be alone? And I was like, right here.
You were that person.
I'm all over that, you know, because like I'll volunteer to be by myself, but also if you stick me in a group, I'm okay there too. But also don't get it twisted, because if you don't pull your weight, I pray that the teacher has one of those anonymous like scoring reports of like your team members, and I will call your ass out. I cannot stand when people are lazy in group settings.
Some accountability.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, I think, I don't know. So as long as you do your work, I'd be a good team player for you. Okay, number 2, social settings don't make me uncomfortable, but I tire of being around people too much. Number 3, being the center of attention is fun for me, but I don't like it to last. Okay, that for me is a no. I do not like being the center of attention.
I don't mind it when I'm in, like I said, performance monkey mode. The best way I can describe it is that I've literally lived a life with 2 personalities the last 17 years.
I can see that with your radio career, like how you have to be on.
Yeah. So, and it's almost kind of comical because I go by two different names too. So very much I can do it when I'm in performance mode, man. I can turn that on, but sometimes I recognize when I'm not truly being like authentic me. And so sometimes that can get in the way of my personal relationships because I wonder, do people want to be friends with Skippy or do they want to be friends with Frances?
4, some people think I'm quiet while others think I'm highly social. Yup.
That applies.
Yeah. Number 5, I don't always need to be moving, but too much downtime leaves me feeling bored. My husband, if he wasn't taking care of our daughter, would probably bust through this door right now to answer for me that is a yes. Like, that's the one thing. Like, even though I feel like he and I are both ambiverts, he gets really frustrated with me sometimes because I'm always like moving and doing. And I think that also has to do with the ADD.
Yeah.
But he gets very excited when I'm sick because
you're sitting down.
Yes. He's like, oh, yay, Deanna wants to cuddle and watch a movie. Like, I cannot tell you the last time. The only way I can watch a movie is if I go to the movie theater. If I watch a movie at home, I cannot tell you the last time I finished a movie at home. And it could be my favorite movie. I will just get up and start doing something else. And my husband is the total opposite. He could read an entire book in one sitting. He could watch the entire Star Wars trilogy, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the whole entire Harry Potter series. He's cool. Me, I'm like, no. If it needs to be 24 minutes, and that's a 30-minute DVR episode where I can fast forward through the commercials. Like, I even know the minute, this has to end. Okay. Number 6, I can get lost in my own thoughts just as easily as I can lose myself in a conversation. Yes. What about you?
Yeah, that works out pretty well. I'm right in the center. And again, these are the 9 traits, the 9 signs that you could be an ambivert.
Number 7, small talk doesn't make me uncomfortable, but it does get boring. Yes.
I think that's my, just to be, and without sounding cocky, I think that's just like I don't want to talk small talk. I want to talk about big things. I want to talk about social issues. I want to talk about
aliens.
Yeah. Oh God, don't talk to me about the weather. I don't care.
Oh yeah. How are you? Yeah, I don't. Stop it. Okay, yes. Okay, 8. When it comes to trusting other people, sometimes I'm skeptical and other times I dive right in. That's me for sure. I don't know. It's like the luck of the draw. I'll meet somebody and get some like intuitive feeling and I'll be like, okay, we're best friends. And I'll say something that's like, I don't know, pretty personal. And then other times I'm like, get away from me. I do not trust you. And most of the time it is that I'm skeptical. But that's not like yes, 100% I'm always skeptical and everyone needs to earn my trust. That's not like, I feel like you and I started off pretty
definitely.
Open, and so I feel like our friendship is a good example of how I can just like dive right in. Do you agree? Are you the same way?
To be perfectly honest, I've had to work on some of my trust stuff because I think sometimes I give people too much of the benefit of the doubt, not with my information, but with just their, like the story they tell me. I just assume they're being honest. So that's bitten me in the ass a few times, but yeah, I've gotten better with it, I think.
Yeah. All right, the last one, number 9, if I spend too much time alone, I get bored, yet too much time around other people leaves me feeling drained. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell right there.
I definitely feel the getting drained part. Honestly, I wish I knew what it felt like to be alone more often. That's one of the, people never talk about the perks of being a divorced parent, but I miss my kids when they're gone. But on the days I don't have them, there's nothing on in the house. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm moving through the house doing my things in quiet. And I just feel like for those few hours, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I want to read a few listener follower messages saying that they're ambiverts. They actually, the way they worded it, a lot of them was like, I'm an extroverted introvert, which is honestly how I would have worded it. Because I don't think that this was a familiar term to me.
No, it's a newer one.
Yeah, I was always kind of under the impression it was introvert or extrovert. So this person said, I'm an extroverted introvert. I need a lot of recharge time. When I'm out in social settings, I'm very outgoing, loud, engaged, and excited. This confuses a lot of people because they assume I want to be social all the time, when in reality, it really drains me, and I don't like being social when I'm not recharged. Work can be challenging because of this. I feel this on such a deep level because especially I have close friends, people who have known me a really long time, who get the Deanna that feels comfortable because we're already close. So when I see them, I am outgoing, and it's not outgoing. I'm just like outspoken, and I'm funny, and I'm engaged, and I'm talking. And then throw on the fact that they follow me on Instagram. And they're like, oh, look at her. She's being funny and posting memes, and she has a lot to say, and there's all these opinions. But then they'll like see me in a group setting like a month or two later and think that like my dog died or something because I'm so quiet and withdrawn. And like, I'm sure like I just went to a bachelorette party and all those women knew me from work. And the person getting married is a very close friend of mine who I feel very, very comfortable with. I'm very outspoken when I'm with her. But in a group setting at the bachelorette party, I was probably one of the most quiet people there. And so it throws people off. They think I'm having a bad time. They think I'm bored. And it's just, no, like in this setting, I'm going to be more observant, and I don't know. So it does weird people out.
Well, we had a couple people that were right in line with you. This one, she's a Misty. She sent me something. She says, I'm the most introverted extrovert I know, often nervous socially, but loves social interaction, desperate to have social interaction, but often ready to leave as soon as I arrive.
Yeah. Yes, I want the invite, but don't get pissed that I don't show up. Like I love my friend Linda, while we were in grad school, she was like, Deanna, are you serious? We had this ongoing joke about I would plan these huge parties or events, and then I would either cancel at the last minute, or I wouldn't like even show up to my own shindig, or I would show up, but then I would disappear into a room somewhere and just like chill out for like an hour and a half. And she's like, what the heck? And so when we were planning my wedding or our wedding and I had to cancel it, like people had hotel rooms booked, and Linda called me and was like, Deanna, you have a problem. This is like the ultimate event. You canceled your own wedding. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm pretty sure people were like shocked to see me at my own baby shower. Like absolutely shocked. I love the idea. I want to plan things for people. I want you to like send me videos and pictures and updates the entire night showing me what you're doing and what you're eating and who's there. And like, but I want to be in my room with my dog watching TV, receiving all the text messages. I don't want to have to be there.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. We had a few more. And by the way, the reason why we're bringing this up and why it's important is, one, it's just kind of fun to know your own traits, but it also can pay off, because this article from Forbes that was talking specifically about ambiverts was saying that highly self-aware people tend to do better and perform better across the board in terms of measurements of success, if you will. So whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or somewhere in the middle, to know where you're at and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are so that you can work on them can pay off. Because one of the questions that we asked our listeners was, how does this affect you in your life in terms of working? And I actually got this one that I wanted to share. She said, I'm self-employed and work from home. So in regards to being an introvert, it's nice. In others, the isolation feels terrible. It's like trying to balance being alone too much in being around people, but only the point that it energizes rather than drains. Although I've learned to pay attention to the people who drain me versus energize me and keep my circle full of positive people. She talks about how it can affect her on a really regular basis. Another listener sent me something, Melissa, who actually has been on our podcast talking about, I think the podcast name was What's in a Name. She talked about her and her partner having, they're in a lesbian relationship, they're engaged, and they have a daughter together. But she says opposites attract. My partner is an introvert, and you know me, I'm an extrovert. And so it's a good balance. And it's helped her come out of her shell a bit, her partner, and it's helped Melissa be more grounded because of her. It just took 5 years.
Yep.
So it's interesting to see when the kind of people you pair up with as well. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody wrote in and said, basically, I'm an introvert who loves being around people in short bursts. He did identify as being an ambi. He said, he goes on to say, I'm a bartender. I absolutely love my job, but when I'm off, I practically hide in my house.
I think it's that performance mode.
Yeah, I get it.
Some of us can turn it on. In fact, coming up, we're going to have a little kind of brief side conversation with Ernie, who's going to be joining us. And he sent me a text, and this is why I thought to hit him up about it. He put 100% card-carrying introvert, even did a workshop at a couple of conferences on being an introverted leader, which is what's really funny because earlier this year, Ernie invited me to speak at a kind of like a Fresno version of TED Talks with this young leaders group. And he's up on stage doing it, but then admits himself he's super introverted. Mm-hmm. The struggle is real. And if us introverts don't put it out there, then other introverts aren't going to think it's possible. So it's like, here's my weirdness. I'm going to wear it like a banner.
It's a badge of honor. Just no shame. Just claim it. So I have one more ambi message. I'm an introvert disguised as an extrovert. I enjoy being around people, but I absolutely need alone time and time to detox after being around others for extended periods of time. Given a choice, I'd rather be alone than with other people. It's weird how this affects my life because I'm in sales. So it's a constant parade of meetings and networking events, which can leave me feeling physically and emotionally exhausted. On the other side of that, I think my introvertedness, did I just invent a word, gives me an air of mystery that people are attracted to, which makes my job and everyday life a little bit more interesting. I've always found introverts as mysterious. Like, ooh, what's going on here? Let me crack the code.
Let's dig. I saw this meme that was posted up by one of our listeners, RJ, and it's just simply titled "Living with Extroverts." This is the extrovert coming home from work. Hello, friend. Turns on all the lights. How was your day? Turns on the TV. What'd you do today? Blast the radio. My day was pretty good. Opens all the windows. A bit tired though. Clatters around the kitchen. Don't mind me. I like a little background noise. Introvert. Oh my God. Feels pretty appropriate.
It's so weird because you read that and I thought to myself, well, there's me. I'm the extrovert in the context of my relationship with my husband or like my close friends. But if it was in the context of me meeting a stranger, I would be the, oh my God, like that it's so clear. Like I can see it.
Well, and so this is a good point to bring up this quiz that we're going to have up. Are you an extrovert, introvert, or ambivert? And you scored squarely, almost dead center, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because like every personality quiz I've ever taken, whether it's like Myers-Briggs, whatever, any quiz, I always score in the middle. Like I've done that quiz where it's like, are you left brain or a right brain person? I literally scored 50-50. Like I can't be, and it's kind of like, it's kind of frustrating because nothing in my life is like dead set. Like, yep, this is the answer. I'm always like, I don't know.
They're complicated.
Yeah.
By the way, I do think I need to point out that as I talk to Deanna, she's wearing her tiny feet on her fingers. We haven't seen the tiny feet and tiny hands in a while.
Oh, that's because my daughter found them and I found 2 pairs in her room. So
Oh,
those are mine.
so it begins. And people who've listened since the beginning are going, oh my God, the tiny hands, tiny feet. So I took the same quiz and I scored solidly in the introvert category, which I think people listening probably want to say bullshit. But again, all I can explain is that I'm a little messed up from 17 years of having a double personality. That's literally all I can explain.
I think it's so interesting that you and I have a podcast. You're a radio personality. I've got this Instagram platform, and you and I just cannot be, we're just 100% not extroverted. And everybody, I think, for the most part, would assume we are. It's fascinating to me, really.
There's a reason why I don't do anything with video. Because, well, I do the Instagram live because that's kind of pushing my comfort zone, and we talk about that, like the importance of pushing your comfort zone and seeing what you're capable of. But video makes me really uncomfortable. So that's why I've never tried to like pursue TV or anything like that personally.
I got to give you props. So you're so good at it. I really I watch your videos and I'm like proud, like a proud mom moment where I'm look at her, and it's live. Like, thank God these aren't live. You poor soul edit our shows, and I'm probably the whole time you're like, God, Deanna, get it together.
What we don't leave in is earlier, we cut it out. We should have. I talked about, this is a good time to bring it up. Talked about what a mess it was to try and record. And then me and Deanna are literally 15 minutes into recording, and my son comes in and goes, Mom, I clogged the toilet. And I we cut that part out, but might as well bring it up because, he almost set the house on fire. So why not almost flood it just for balance?
It's just, you know what though, in thinking about pushing ourselves, I think that this is an important thing to talk about, because just for this podcast, for example, every time I log in to pull up the video to see you and make sure my mic is on, my heart is pounding so hard. I get so nervous. I remember how nervous I was about the launch of the podcast. I'm like, I can't. Putting myself out there like this is just too much pressure for me. I don't like it.
And now we're 40 something in and 250,000 downloads in. That's downloads, not even counting who's streaming. So there you go. See, but that's a great example of pushing your comfort zone.
Exactly. So before we move on in talking with Ernie, our guest, I wanted to also share some examples of our followers who say that they're introverts or extroverts, since we've thoroughly gone over the ambivert. All right. So we got a message, introvert. She says, literally had to quit my teaching job 2 years in. I would get home from being around hundreds of people all day and wouldn't want anyone to talk to me or touch me. Wasn't healthy for my marriage or motherhood. Starting my master's in social work program next month, I do better with one-on-one in small groups, and that degree offers the ability to do that. Teaching, not so much.
That's honest. And wow, that had to have been hard.
That had to be extremely hard. But just as you said, it's honest. She's self-aware, and the master's in social work absolutely does offer many, many, many job opportunities where you can just be very one-on-one with people or in very small, intimate groups. And for her to know, hey, this isn't a good fit for me, and it's also spilling over into my marriagehood and motherhood, to make that was a very hard decision to make, but it was the right one for her to make. So I applaud her. The last one in terms of the introvert messages that we're going to share today, highly introverted. I work at a church part-time as a kids director, and it makes it difficult since I don't enjoy talking to new people or talking on the phone. I'm forced to be in positions I'm constantly not comfortable with, but I'm constantly growing as a person and learning more of how to cope. But it also makes dating very hard.
God, dating.
Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah. Tell us how you really feel, Frances.
Actually, okay, so it's going really good right now. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh, good. I like to hear that. All right. Actually, I lied. I have one more introvert response. All right. So definitely an introvert. It's taken me years to realize that I'm okay just the way I am and everyone's different. Just because I'm not outgoing and I don't always want to be around people or interact doesn't mean I'm less of a person. On the downside, I spent years learning that there was nothing wrong with me for being that way. While it may have been a part of a perception on my part, I felt like growing up, there was definitely something wrong with me and that I wasn't as good as others who were outgoing and had a big group of friends or extrovert tendencies. So it sort of stifled me in that respect. But once I grasped the concept, I'm completely okay with it now. Bravo.
Again, it's that insight, right? Just having an idea of who you are and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And to wrap up the examples, we'll go on to 3 messages about extroversion. Is that a word? Because I kind of like it.
Yeah, it sounds like a word. It's a word today. Right. So is Ambi.
I'm going with that. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so being an extrovert means always. So this was the one that she was saying, being an extrovert always means taking leadership positions even when you don't want to fill them because you are the most outgoing or the only one who will speak up. I'm going to share this one because I'm going to respectfully disagree. Okay. I think that this is a matter of self-awareness. You don't always have to take leadership roles. Oftentimes at work, I am extroverted, which is why I tend to kind of shut down when I'm at home. And there were many times that I decided I'm not taking this leadership position because it wasn't a good fit or I didn't particularly care for I didn't want to manage that team. And I knew in my assessment of who was working there, it would just make my life miserable. And I didn't want to do that to me, my family. And honestly, I don't know how effective I would have been in a leadership role to certain people. You know, I've been in leadership roles and a director in other capacities, and it was amazing and I loved it. But I think that there's a healthy level of awareness that we should ideally try to get to see just because I'm extroverted doesn't necessarily mean I need to take this position.
Right. Again, just the insight. And that's where knowing this stuff, kind of feeling yourself out, getting curious about where you fall on the scale and what you can do to improve certain areas that need work can really pay off for overall satisfaction, I think, in relationships and work situations personally, because sometimes, I mean, to some degree, we all need a little bit of personal time and social time.
Yeah. All right. So next message, definitely an extrovert. How it's impacted my life. I'm not old, only 28 years old, but I feel that many people throughout my life, friends, families, significant others, have always tried to get me to tone it down. And that hasn't always been fun because I felt like I was being told not to be myself. It sucked the most when it came from my mom, aka my best friend, or my ex-husband. Good thing he's my ex now. Yeah. I feel like I actually did learn how to be more of an ambivert or understand my surroundings and the setting to not be so obnoxious sometimes. But at the end of the day, I love having conversations with people, complimenting and smiling, getting to know others as much as possible. I like it when people understand this about me and just let me be me. I love that.
I think that's what it comes down to as well. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see, Deanna, is as your daughter gets older, where she falls on the scale. Because because as a parent, this is like my little, I guess, PSA, is to recognize that your children have different approaches too in their personalities, and they might not line up with yours, and then they might not line up with each other. And so then taking into account how that all works together in your interaction. So
yeah,
we tend to think about it as work, but really it's our home life too.
Yeah. I had a moment the other day. We went to Disneyland and we were waiting for the parade to start. And we had seen the parade a couple times, but we never got a good seat. So we were always kind of like standing back. So she was taking a nap. I'm like, no, we're going to get like a bench seat set in front of her. Set in front of her. Don't even edit that out.
Nope, staying.
Okay. Wow. I can't even remember what I was saying. Okay. So my daughter wakes up, realizes, oh my God, look at all these people. We were still waiting for the parade. And you know how Disneyland is, like, it's empty, little street, and everyone's lined up. She got out of her stroller and walked up and down the street waving at people. She looked like she was on like a political like campaign trail. Like my husband just followed her because once again, me being the more introverted one, I was like, I am not doing this. I am not following her. No. So he gladly did. And he was like, oh my God, I had to pick her up because she would have kept going, just like waving at everyone. Hi, hi, hi.
Oh my God, I love her.
I'm going to love her if she all of a sudden makes a turn and turns super introverted. You know, I'm going to love her either way. But I was thinking like, oh my God, I wonder if she's going to like hold on to this.
Right. Because some of it, it's interesting. It's interesting when you look at it that way as to, you know, how parents parent or how society impacts our kids and where it falls into kind of changing their natural tendencies. That's super interesting. Oh my God, I bet she was the cutest little thing ever.
Yeah. He was like, I took a video of it because it was unbelievable. Like she didn't even look really behind to see if anyone was following her. And people were just like, oh my God, like she is so cute. Like people were taking pictures of her and like videos. It was just this little tiny person going down the street that was pretty empty, just saying hi to everyone. Anyway.
I love Micah.
Yeah. Last message, it says, I am naturally an extrovert, but because of a tragedy I've experienced, I am now, for the most part, introverted, which is a strange phenomenon because I'm still adjusting to it. I'm no longer comfortable in large groups or in settings with strangers, which previously I absolutely lived for. It's also been a huge impact on my relationships. I wanted to share this because it's not, I don't know, it just struck me. I kind of identify with her a lot, actually, because I feel like when I was younger, I was more extroverted. And then as time went on and I've seen some shit, I tend to
pull back a little bit.
Yeah, pull back. So I feel like the extroverted spirit is still in us. It just takes more to pull it out.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So that's it for me. The messages.
So we're going to switch gears here momentarily. The way sometimes this recording goes, we have to work at the availability from some of our guests. So we're going to leave now into a quick little aside, if you will, from Ernie, a quote, 100% card-carrying introvert who has done trainings on how to be a leader if you have those introverted characteristics. And then we'll come back and we'll wrap up with a feel-good news story. Okay, so as promised, this portion of the podcast is to talk to somebody who has a little background in how introverts can actually be good leaders, contrary to kind of some of the popular stereotypes. So joining me is Ernie. Hello.
Hello.
Now, Ernie, you are a 100% card-carrying introvert. That's how you've described yourself, right?
Absolutely. I'm totally scared to be on this phone call right now.
Which is so funny because I've seen you in such popular on stage interacting type situations, but you're telling me that inside that makes you really uncomfortable.
Actually, like public speaking doesn't make me, I get nervous obviously as most people do, but I'm much more nervous having a one-on-one conversation or if I were talking to just a small group of people.
Okay, I could understand that. Doing radio, I get that same thing. It's like you go into performance mode.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about how you have done trainings to help introverted people recognize their leadership skills.
So I work in the education field. I work at the local community college here in Fresno. And one time I was in a meeting and we were planning another conference. And one of the activities they wanted to do was a selfie scavenger hunt, which I think is a great idea. But they wanted to divide up the attendees into teams randomly And so I said, wait a minute, if you're going to tell me I'm going to be on a team with a bunch of strangers that I don't know as an introvert, I'm definitely out. And a couple of people gave me some flack about it. They said, well, the point of this conference is for you to learn to be a leader and to come out of your shell. And so I had that idea then to sort of develop a workshop that I've done a few times now at a couple of statewide conferences about how introverts can be great leaders.
So we talked about a little bit earlier in the podcast some of the difference in terms of personalities and also this idea of introverts. So there's introverts, there's extroverts, and somewhere in the middle is ambivert. So explain to me some of the research that's gone into this. You cite reversing the extroverted leadership advantage.
Yeah, so that was a study that was done by the Harvard Business School, and what they concluded was that introverted leaders actually do well at leading teams of proactive employees, so leading teams of extroverts, not all extroverts, obviously, but teams of proactive employees, because the introvert leaders are more likely to listen to and implement ideas from the team rather than trying to take the spotlight for themselves or force their ideas on the team.
Oh, I like that. So what are some qualities you would say? Because, again, the thing we kept hearing over and over again is I'm an extrovert, I'm a natural leader. And so I think sometimes people just put in their head, like, it's just not me. This just isn't my type, but my ability. You know, it's like outside of the wheelhouse, I think is the phrase that's very outdated and I probably butchered. What are some qualities of introverted leaders?
So some things that make introverts or would make them good leaders, I won't say better leaders, but good leaders. One is that they do more listening and less talking. They'll typically speak when they have something to say that will actually contribute. They're going to be more measured in their responses. They're not going to be prone to outbursts. They typically will think a big decision think through an issue before making a big decision. Their ideas and things tend to be more realistic and grounded, and generally not motivated to be the center of attention. And I think one big thing is that since introverts spend so much time in their head, they're more self-aware about what their weaknesses are and when to ask for help and when to rely on their team members.
I also like the ability that this brings up, that they tend to be more risk adverse, because sometimes we need that in a group setting.
Yeah, definitely. Since they are going to think about a topic a lot longer, they're not going to do something like put all the money into one thing, not going to put the whole organization at risk.
Maybe we should we should be. There's so many opportunities where I'm going, oh, we need some more introverts in control. We need some more introverts in control. Okay, so if that's
we just had an introvert in control, but he turned out of office.
Yeah, that did happen. So, okay, a question for you then is, how can leaders in these organizations, because maybe right now it's more kind of standard introvert organizations, like they're the underlings, and then you've got these extroverted leaders. How can people get more out of their introverted team members?
A few things I would suggest. One, obviously, if you're a leader, this is just good leadership principle overall. One is that you should learn about your team. The extroverts are going to be pretty easy to recognize. The introverts, maybe not so much, because they've all been taught to act like extroverts.
Yeah, I know. I've learned how to fake it.
Definitely. A lot of the articles and books that I read said things. Basically, the advice they were giving was just be an extrovert, act like an extrovert. And that's not the point. Like, shouldn't have to change who you are. So a few other things. A leader might want to allow an introvert to work on their own, maybe in their own space. If one of your team members says it's too distracting out here, can I go to a conference room or something? If they need a quiet place to work, because sometimes it's hard for introverts, me especially, to focus when there's a lot of noise around or light or other people. they would want to allow your team members to give any feedback on a topic or something, maybe before or after a meeting instead of in front of everyone. And then a good leadership principle for introverts and for anybody is, if you're going to give feedback to somebody, do it in private.
That's horrifying. I've had to learn how to get better at constructive criticism. By the way, constructive criticism is aimed at actually making positive changes. It's not under the guise of, let me just be a jerk right now and call it constructive criticism. I just want to throw that out there because I think there's been some confusion as of late in society in general. Like, you can't take criticism. No, I can't take you being a dick. There's a difference. So here's my question to you, Ernie. You're a great example of an introvert that has moved into a leadership position. So what would you tell an up-and-coming introvert on how to move ahead without just saying, be less like you?
So when I do this workshop, when I get to this portion of it, the first thing I always say is, don't be an introvert. I'm making air quotes because that helps on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Don't be an introvert. And what that means is don't give in to the stereotypes of introversion that we've been taught this whole time. Another thing I tell people is to play to your strength. Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken.
I like that.
So play to your strengths. If you know you're good at writing, for example, maybe there's a way you can help on a certain project in that area, or if you're highly organized, or if you're good at event planning, just play up to your strengths. I always say be a stalker, which means find a mentor or somebody that you can sort of observe. You don't have to go to somebody and say, oh, will you be my mentor? You can observe how they treat people and how they make decisions without actually having to make it a formal thing.
Without actually having to talk to them, which introverts appreciate.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
It's so true.
And then one last thing that I always say is that you can be quiet and still be visible. So that means you don't always have to, like a lot of extroverts, when they go to meetings and so forth, they always got something to say. You don't have to do that, but if you're still in the same meetings and you're still helping make these decisions and you're still helping on these projects, eventually somebody's going to notice.
Right. And until then, you can, dye your hair and get tattoos. That's worked for me. Before I send you,
you're doing okay.
It's all a show. Before I send you off, I do want to ask: can you name for us some famous or well-known introverts that have been in positions of leadership or fame?
So historical introverts, if you go back, million years, you got Moses, Jesus, Isaac Newton, more currently Rosa Parks, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Wozniak. Not that there's a correlation between being an introvert and being a billionaire, but
or being like a social media thing. It makes okay. Wait a second. Let's do time out here. It makes sense that so many people that are involved in the tech world are introverts. Because they're,
definitely,
and not just the tech world, but social media, because social media has made it easier for introverts to reach out. So, but that's not just in the billionaire world. I mean, there's other people too in other fields.
Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, Michael Jordan, Barack Obama, Lady Gaga, Beyonce.
Adele was one I was thinking. I know you had to throw that one in there. It's interesting because I think when you really sit and listen to some of the interviews of these famous folks, you hear their struggle. And in a lot of ways, we do kind of come up with this second identity, right, that allows you to perform. But then when you're in your own space, you have to recharge by being alone, by being more quiet and introspective. So, Ernie, thank you so much. You've been a great addition to this podcast. I really do appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So thanks again to Ernie for that bit of information that he has imparted on us, and hopefully that works out well for our introverts that are looking for leadership roles. Deanna, back as we wrap up, should we do a feel-good news story?
Yeah. So I saw this story. This man, to help his grandmother stay hydrated, he created water that you can eat. I think they're called jelly drops. So she has dementia, and these jelly drops look like candy and appeal to people with dementia to keep them hydrated, because it's really quite difficult to get somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, or honestly any kind of like extreme mental or physical handicap. Or we were even talking about people with like traumatic brain injuries who have a hard time wanting to drink water. Like sometimes it's really difficult to get people to drink water.
Yeah.
Like in the hospitals, when I worked in the hospitals, like I was called in as like a social work consult many, many times. And the consult reason was person doesn't want to drink water. And they had already consulted with like the dietitian or what have you, nurses, doctors, and no one could convince them. And so they were like, there's like some kind of mental, psychological block. Maybe the social worker can tap into what's going on. But it happened a lot. So I thought this was really uplifting. It's won a bunch of awards, and some Snowden Award for Disability, the Dyson School of Design and Engineering Desire Award for Social Impact, Helen Hamlin Design Award. So this is huge. So
that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, I love it too. And I also wanted to share a listener shout out because it was hilarious. She says, I was at Disneyland in the Nemo ride, and as I was waiting in line, one of the workers inside the submarine waved at us from the windows with tiny hands. It was the cutest, most adorable thing ever. Okay. And can I just tell you how many fanny packs I saw at Disneyland? We need to like go back to whatever episode that was many moons ago where I was like,
called it
tiny hands and fanny packs. I have this really weird sixth sense about weird trends that are up and coming.
You nailed it, and we have it documented.
I have, exactly. So people can be like, Deanna, you exaggerate or make up stories. No, I don't. Go back and listen to that episode because I friggin' called it. Tiny hands and fanny packs are everywhere, people.
Your problem, though, is that you didn't put any money on it.
I know. Now I'm like looking at like stock. Don't even get me started. I was on E-Trade thinking like, what should I invest in? That's a whole other episode.
First of all, then that's just awesome about Disneyland. I take my kids once a year, and we were picking dates and stuff because we always like to go when Nightmare Before Christmas is done in the Haunted Mansion. So I'm excited. I'm living vicariously through you on that one.
Ooh, yay.
So as we wrap up, friendly reminder where you can find us online.
Humanitarians Podcast on Instagram. You can check me out at Hilarious Humanitarian on Instagram, Humanitarian Mom on Instagram. Frances, you can find her at Shut Up Skippy on Snapchat, Instagram, shutupskippy.com. Check her weekly blog every Tuesday.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Please make sure to subscribe and rate our podcast. You can find us on iTunes Podcasts, Google Play. Hey, you can find us pretty much everywhere. Go to Google. Have you ever heard of Google? Go to Google and type in Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast.
I remember the first time I heard of Google, it was in a comm theory class, and up until that point, I'd been using Ask Jeeves. Google changed my life.
Oh, God. Ask Jeeves. I hated that website. He was always wrong.
It was.
Who is this guy? Get out of here.
Jeeves is a joke. He's not even a good butler. All right. We're done for this week. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.